All right. I don't know how to start this. I don't have any particular agenda.
Ask me anything, man. I'm an open book, bro.
Yeah, but seriously, Lord, thanks. It's good seeing you,
You're
man.
welcome, man. It's great seeing you too, man. I mean, we linked up. I mean, dude, we met up at the Mountain Bar.
At the Mountain Bar, exactly.
Now it's called General Lee's.
Is it?
And the same guys that put up that event, now they moved to the Federal Bar, Culture Clash, North Hollywood on Friday nights. That's just a plug for you guys.
There we go.
But yeah, I mean, it was you and Luis, dude. Like,
That's
just
right.
hanging out at the smoking patio,
right.
and that was it, dude. Like,
Yeah.
we just start mashing it up, and then we're just like talking about just life issues at the time, like social commentary, just just random conversation you wouldn't normally have at a bar or a club, but
Yeah.
it just so happens we vibed, we saw each other, we're just like, yo, just, and then-
Yeah.
And I think also Luis, well, he has a girlfriend now, but I think he was like checking out two of my homegirls.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
All right. So, can you hear at both of your?
Now I can hear it. Yeah.
Okay.
Now I can hear it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to start it off with too. Is like we met at the Mountain Bar
Chinatown.
in
Yeah.
Chinatown.
Yeah.
And I think Louis
Yeah.
introduced us because he's like, this guy goes to LMU
Yeah.
and introduced me to you or something of the sort.
Yeah,
saying
it came down to that effect. Because I mean, I've always saw Luis like at the Mountain Bar, just just listening to music, vibing, checking out the DJs.
Yeah.
The DJs are pretty dope. And then he was like, "You're going to LMU? What the hell?" And he's like, "These two girls at LMU too." And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "My boy Marty, he's going to LMU. He's transferring next semester." And I was like, "Oh snap!" And that's how we made that connection, and we just vibed, dude. And like, that
very
was just
true.
how it all started. And then we just saw each other on campus, and I'm like, "Oh shit, you're here." We can cuss, right?
Yes.
Oh, word. Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you were very nice to me. I was asking you about a few different questions about how to get started in terms of like registration and things like that, and you provided that info, so that was very helpful. And then seeing you at LMU was cool as well.
Yeah, man. And then you actually came out to some of our events, like and we that's what we did. Me and DJ. Shout out to DJ Chuck, and Soul from Productions.
Shout out to Chuck.
When we were like DJing, you're like, what? So you DJ here at LMU, this, that, and the third? Like, yeah, man, we hold it down. Like, he was like, but you're playing like good stuff, like the good classic, like hip hop and R&B. It was like, well, we got to reintroduce it to the masses because you can only hear at that time, EDM was the most popular type of music.
Right.
Nothing over 120 beats per minute, and then we like threw in like some old school hip hop and just stuff that they grew up on. They're like, oh, dude, they're real DJs. And I'm like, yeah, we're real DJs. Like, we've been doing this for quite some time. Like, literally under my belt, I can say I'm like a little over 20 years. I've been doing, this little DJ thing.
That's the whole time.
And then combine basically the experience between me and Chuck, you probably got like a little over like 30 or 40 years, even 50 years of experience.
Wow.
Yeah, because I mean, me and him, we're always DJing together. Like, we always do weddings, we do private events, we even do our own shows that we put together.
Right.
We've worked with different various groups, and recently we're working with this really cool group called Lagom, and they're just like a bunch of like-minded individuals, and they're from the LGBTQ, did I say that right, community. And we're open. We're very open. Honor Flow Productions, Strong Style DJs, and the event DJ Hangouts. We're very open to to different types of people that comes from different walks of life. And we're all about just hitting a nerve, hitting a perspective, evoking that kind of sense of like emotion when it comes to music. Because it's not that often that you have that out of body experience when it comes to music, especially with Honor Flow Productions. What we do is we're a throwback. We're a throwback nostalgia. We can't help being compared to like old groups that influence us heavily, which is like Track Off Us, Farside, Wu-Tang. I mean, you hear it in the music, the roots.
Yeah.
And we actually just put out a music video called All Right. And it was actually produced by those two girls. Shout out to Irie and Joss from Lagom. And we never knew what that meant. We thought it was an acronym of sorts. Lagom. Lagom is like apparently I want to be more. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it's a Scandinavian term where it's this basically connection between like-minded individuals. And exactly what they do, because they hold art galleries, they do like shows. They were doing I think sometime by the end of the summer they're going to be doing some kind of like short film, but it's also like
Very
from
cool.
different various types of people. I'll shoot you the link and everything.
Yeah.
Check it out, man.
So
It's
you work with these
Mhm.
these girls, and they produced your video.
They did. They directed and produced our music video, All Right, which came out about, I'm going to say 3 weeks ago.
All right.
And the backstory is, so we love origin stories, right? It's just like Marvel and DC. Marvel, of course. But, so basically, Chuck and Irie, her name's Irene actually, they went to, I believe, elementary school, grade school together. And they've known each other for quite some time. So there's history there, and they just reconnected. It just so happens that it's like, she was doing an art gallery thing. She wanted to get performances together. She needed a DJ, so Chuck was that guy. And so that's how we connected. That's how we created that music video, All Right.
Nice.
And then I'll shoot you the link so you can, if you want to.
Yeah, where can people find it at?
YouTube. It's on YouTube. Just type in Honor Flow Productions, 3 separate words, and the song is All Right, spelled as it is.
Got it.
L-I-G-H-T. And
Cool.
it's all on the streaming sites from, you got Tidal, Spotify, Apple Play, whatever you use. It's all there.
Very cool.
Beats One, and because actually Chuck's working for Beats One now. He's working for Apple Music, so.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
man. He's Honor Flow Productions. We've been around quite some time, but we're making moves, a little slow. I don't want to say baby steps. I don't even talk about babies in my language, but more like we call them grandfather, grandmother steps, or I'm a Filipino, so we call it Lolo or Lola steps.
Okay.
Just kind of like
Yeah.
abuela steps.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I think that's the right way to go about it. That's kind of like the philosophy that I apply to my life as well. Like, I always feel like if this was a race, I feel like I'm definitely the tortoise, the person who's just kind of like going forward, just going forward, going forward, going forward, and maybe at a slow pace, because I mean, how many people do you know, influencers, musicians, who are young and popping? There's a fucking ton. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know what I mean? And if you're comparing yourself to those people, it's, I don't think, a good indicator of your success or of your value that you can provide to the marketplace, to your fans, to your
Absolutely.
listeners, or whatever. But I think that it's just to continue to work on your craft, whether it's being DJ or whether it's being a podcaster, whatever it is, just keep on going and making those steady progression, and I think eventually it's going to expand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Expand.
And you just provide your art. I mean, that's the whole thing about being an artist is you are probably the most vulnerable, if anything, because you learn that as a DJ. The fact that you're taking that risk to go out there, entertain people, provide music. Because my whole philosophy as a DJ is I want to take you away from your problems. If it's for that brief moment of 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7 hours of me just providing music, and sometimes, not to knock any other DJs, under the bus or anything, but we've had experiences where, the DJ may not provide that. Sometimes the DJ becomes the big concern, and it's already hard enough that life in itself, is a bit difficult. We're not living in the most easiest times.
Right.
And basically, we always believe, even as an artist, I always believe that our art should reflect the social commentary of the time. And now, more than ever, it's like artists need to band together and kind of like, use whatever form of vehicle they may have, whether it be their poetry, their art, film, vlogs. I mean, now, more than ever, you have so much access to information, even fake news and all that stuff. But we really need to re-educate the masses about what's really going on these days and times. I mean, I'm just an ordinary person. Honestly, I always believe that, I'm just an ordinary, everyday guy. I was just given God-given talents, whether it be music, DJing, or being able to communicate my art through DJing, through using that as a pulpit.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be all preachy or whatever, but when you have situations where you have children locked up in cages in the border, and whatever your political stance may be, left or right, regardless of the fact of the matter is, you have children locked up, in prison, and people are benefiting. It's a lot of things we don't talk about, but it's not even so much like a political position now. It's more like a moral position. Now, as an artist, what do you do about it? Do you just turn a blind eye? It's like, well, that's their problem, making money. Well, see, unfortunately, as an artist, you gotta be responsible. You gotta be held responsible. You can't be like, well, I'm not a role model. Well, you're making music. And, you know, artists like Tupac have warned us about artists or rappers, you know, not to put anyone in the bus. But it comes down to the point where we have to be very conscious of the decisions we make, the purchases we make. And for me, you know, I'm the type of guy, like, I wear my heart on my sleeve. And you know that. Like, whatever I'm feeling, if I'm happy, if I'm sad, if I'm angry, I'll try to, like, cloak it just a little bit. But at these days and times, it's like, it's not hard. It's like, it's difficult, man. And a lot of people are struggling. And that's why we gotta, like, as an artist for Honorable Productions, as the DJ, Chuck being the producer and MC, and Paul, aka Eliminate, us three, because remember, I don't know if you remember Honorable Productions, we used to be a band.
Yeah.
Remember, we used to be like an 8-piece band. Now we're down to 3. And it's been like that since like 2014. You know, just life happened. All our band members moved or, you know, continued on with life. And we were like, well, it's down to us 3. And it's always been like a trio. Like, it's always been like, if you've noticed, a lot of the best hip hop groups, because you don't have any more groups, you just have solo artists. If you look at any of the, you know, even from the last 10, 15 years, you haven't had a lot of great hip hop groups. Maybe like have resided in like underground hip hop that became commercial mainstream from, you know, Wu-Tang, Tribe Called Quest, Farside. Shout out to Woody Rose, Stone 2.2. That's the homies too. But you know, but we also have Dilated Peoples. We have Jurassic 5, People Over the Stairs. These are the guys that really, really influenced us. And it came down to the point where, like, yeah, now it's like, it's our responsibility to make music what it is, because we can't, I mean, our take on commercial hip hop right now is like, it's basically, you know, it's that trap music. And that's fine. I mean, if you're into that, cool. You know what I mean? But we already know 95.5% of those rappers ain't doing no life. You know, we can only be at a strip club, so we can only be
Right.
in that like mindset of like turning up, making money. You know, I'm gonna be as raw and unadulterated, you know,
Go for it.
fucking mad bitches and all that shit. Like, just being super misogynistic, but at the same time, ironically, the music in itself has a misogynistic message. Yet, it's they embrace their feminine tendencies, because some of these like rappers are a little bit like off the wall, kind of different, how you want to call it, unique. But
In terms of their femininity?
yeah, like just like
Like
wearing
young dresses or
dresses,
something like that?
wearing dresses, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Like,
kind of
just-
weird, right?
Just being weird, but I mean, my whole thing is, okay,
What's up with that?
I don't know what kind of artistic statement you're
Didn't
trying to
Travis
make.
Scott wear dresses?
Something like that. Travis Scott. A lot of those rappers back then. I mean, I'm not dissing nobody. You know what I mean? Like,
That's weird though.
it's interesting because, you know, also we are living in a time period where, you know, humor has changed when it comes to like, in regards to the people gay community, LGBTQ. You have to be very ultra sensitive to, like, you can't just joke around. Like back in the day, you're like, oh dude, that's gay. It's like, now you can't say that. That's just not right. You know, and I mean, even to the point where it's like, you know, transgendered, you know, individuals right now, men or women, now they have a say, they have a stance, they have a pulpit where they can stand and he says like, no, it's not right to make fun of us. No, it's not right. So now you're kind of like, when you look at these rappers who are, okay, cross-dressing or whatever, it's like, what's the message? What's going on?
Right.
You know, what's the...
Are they supportive or are they making fun?
Yeah.
This is going through my mind.
No, and I've always think about that because I always look at two sides of the argument, because are you either for the cause or are you just like poking fun, or are you just trying to be provocative in a sense where here's a man who's wearing a dress.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's why it's kind of like we have to be very conscientious of like, and it's, you know, the kids, teenagers, they're very, I mean, we're not guilty. We're guilty too, because I mean, we listened to a lot of like that filthy hip hop and that like dirty, grimy gangster rap. Where if you grew up in like the early '90s, you were listening to Luke, Two Life Crew, Booty music, and that was that. I mean, every time period, every generation had their ratchet types.
Yeah.
And we can't fall from it. I mean, even Chris Rock said it best. You know, like in one of the stand-up comedy sketches, he's like, girls will be like, they can't get mad about those kind of songs where they're literally being derogatory towards women, being super misogynistic.
Yeah.
And to the point where they're degrading them to a matter of they're just flesh and blood and just a piece of meat. And it's just interesting because like, but then what Chris Walker says, well, he ain't talking about me, though, so I'm just gonna do me.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
that's the whole thing, you know, man. I mean, that's why it's like for us, this is just us in general.
Honor Flow Productions.
Honor Flow Productions in general, like we try to make a conscientious choice of like, you know, we're not necessarily trying to preach. We're not trying to, you know, like, you know, shove our dogma down your throat or anything. Because we love to have fun too. And clearly you've experienced that when we would DJ, and we just like, you know, we're all about, to me, like going back to what I said earlier about being a DJ, just be conscientious of like all of these things. Maybe I just get stuck in my head, you know what I mean? But to me, it's like ultimately why I do this is because I just want to take people away from their problems, give them a good time, and you know, not make the DJ the concern, but take them away from their concerns.
Yeah.
You know? But I know we went off on a tangent and all that whole stuff.
I feel like music is a good way to take people away from their problems.
Yeah.
For example, like whenever I get off work for me, my 9 to 5 for me is something that is not something that I want to do, but it's something that I have to do in order to pay my bills.
Of course. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would assume that 95% of the people watching this or who will ever watch this might agree as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's certain things that we like to do, there's certain interests that we have that we would want to pursue, but work takes up a lot of the time.
Oh yeah.
So after I'm off work, I'm always playing music. You know what I mean?
Got to.
I'm always playing music when I'm, you know, in my car or whatever, and it relaxes me and it takes my mind off, I guess, my responsibilities slightly. Not to the point where, like, if I'm drinking, I get my mind off.
You're decompressing, basically. That's what you're doing. You're decompressing after a long day's work.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to do something that's like, you know, you don't want to do something that requires a lot of cognitive thought.
Right.
You don't want something that requires, because you've been doing that for like 8 hours straight, and I could relate to that because, you know, if anyone knows, I mean, I'm a paralegal by trade, so it's like I'm a legal assistant, so I work at the law office. I'm either in two places. I'm either at the law office or I'm at the courthouse. And God forbid anyone has to be at a courthouse for 3 to 4 hours, but that's on average what I do. That's why, for me to have that creative outlet of like what you're saying, like being able to like just once you're done with work, you turn up the jams, you turn on the music, and it's the music I do love listening to because it's like, it just kind of like, yeah, granted, life, you know, life is what it is. It's how you make it. And if like work was, you know, if you had a tough day at work, sometimes you just need an ice cold beer and some good tunes, or watch your favorite, you know, shows, movies, some kind of like mindless entertainment. I think that's like too thought provoking. And sometimes you need that balance too. But
Sure.
sometimes I'm like, if anyone knows who I am, you know, I'm a big wrestling fan. I'm a big MMA fan. I'm a big basketball fan. So that's what I do for my spare time. You know, it's our pastime. People like watching the Dodgers. People like watching the Chargers.
Yeah.
People like watching the Lakers, LeBron.
Yeah.
You know, and the Clippers or whatever you're into. And for me, it's like, I just love just turning on like the TV, just let it run, just kind of relax and turn my brain off, because you gotta do that, man. People gotta relax. People gotta chill out.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help with this weather. It's hot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And people are hot. People are frustrated. But you need to find that outlet. You just need to find something to cool you off and kind of like find things that put you in perspective, or even what it makes that that journey even easier is being surrounded by good, positive people.
Yeah.
And being able,
Gotcha.
yeah, I mean, being able to like also not just good, positive people, but people who also will like tell you like it is.
For sure.
Because I mean, as we grow up, you know, like we always want, you know, an ego boost. We always want like someone who's gonna feed our ego and make us feel good about ourselves. But at the same time, there's a slippery slope. You gotta also have people who's gonna set you straight and tell you like it is. Like you gotta have somebody on your team who's like not a yes man or yes woman, and
Sure.
tell you like, dude, you're messing up. You're fucking
Yeah.
up. Like that's the reality of things. You know?
Yeah, that it could, but does that person have to be different than the person who is positive and spitting some truth, or
It could
kind of
be.
giving you? It could be one and the
It
same.
could be one and the same, or there
Yeah.
could be individuals like different people. 'Cause, you know, I mean, like-minded individuals gravitate towards each other. As you get older, I mean, many will relate to this. Like I want to say like your toleration for bullshit and bullshit people lessens.
Yeah.
Like, it's to the point like you will have zero to no tolerance
Yeah.
with people who, you know,
Yeah.
lie on you, who cheat
Sure.
on you, or, you know, basically like, you know, they just play you for a fool. And that's the whole thing is like, people don't realize, you know, you can't do that. Because for me, like, I don't want to brag, but I'm very self-aware. And I believe in the ideas of like self-love. I believe self-care, self-awareness.
100%.
Yeah, and you got to do that because even if you want to embark on a relationship, you know, you got to know yourself first. And you got to know what you want and what you don't want. And last year, unfortunately, you know, I was in a relationship too, but it didn't work out. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but all I know is that post-relationship, I began to realize, you know, it's like I was giving up myself to a lot of people, specifically, you know, an individual, more than I really should. And I remember my friends would, you know, shout out to my boys, you know, like, guys, put me down, like, shout out, Paul, with me, or it's like my brothers, you know, like, they would like tell me, they would put me aside and be like, dude, I just think you're doing too much with this person. It didn't have to be necessarily the person I was with in the relationship last year. I'm just like, you just do way too much for them. I mean, my sister would call me out on that. You know, her fiance would call me out on that. I mean, even my
Gotcha.
parents. And the whole thing with me, it's like,
Well, you seem like a very caring
well, I do.
person.
I care a lot. And the
Yeah.
whole thing is like, I give the all of me to everyone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I don't understand when people say stuff like, I can't give you the all of me now. Like, why? I mean, if we're invested in a relationship, a friendship, it's like you get all of me, none of me. And that's how I was. You know, it's like just up and left because I was like, I didn't feel appreciated. I felt like I questioned my own self-worth. When a person makes you question your own self-worth, then that's when you should start re-examining that relationship or that friendship. Because
That makes sense.
yeah, because to me it's like, you know, you should know your own value, you should know your own worth, and you should know exactly like what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah.
And if it's not feeding, I don't want to say it's not feeding your ego, I'm talking about now feeding your soul. I'm talking about your peace of mind. Because what's more important in this world than your own peace of mind?
Nothing.
It's priceless.
Yeah.
Because when a person deteriorates that peace of mind and you question your own self-worth, am I worthy to be with this person? Am I worthy? Like, see, those like negative thoughts, you just shoot it out the door or out the window because those are the type of things that are just irrelevant. Like, you have no control over it. If you don't vibe with that person or the friendship, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, they said, like, it doesn't matter, like, how long you've known a person or the history you've shared with that person. What matters most is loyalty. If they actually were loyal to you, even when you're at like your darkest days or days where you're like in moments of like controversy or times where you seriously messed up, then they're still with you. That's family. Because there's a difference. I mean, we got family and you got relatives. We have no choice who our blood relatives are, but ultimately, I mean, I don't know, I know you can relate. And we actually have family that's not even blood related, because you already know they got
Yeah.
your back, front, side to side. You know what I mean? Like, they're just that types of
that's so
people. Like, they don't care if your reputation precedes you. They're like, nah, this is my homie, this is my homegirl, or this is my brother, this is my sister. And like, it's like, and I feel like that. I mean, I'm more closer to people who are not blood related to me, and who are not even family, but they are family. And you
Gotcha.
have blood related family or relatives are just
Yeah.
like, you don't know anything about them. They don't know anything about you.
You don't spend any time with them. They're maybe like your second cousin or your second cousin.
Even first
your
cousins.
aunt,
Yeah.
even first cousin. Man, maybe even like brothers or sisters, mothers and fathers.
Yeah.
And for some situation, but you're right. It's about the people who hold you down. It's about the loyalty, the people that you can trust and be surrounded with. And I think that is a very important point. That loyalty is probably one of the most valued things to be valued in this world, because this world is kind of crazy.
It is pretty crazy, and it's hard to trust, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to trust, and it's hard to be vulnerable, because you know you
Mhm.
can have somebody who like may appear to be like that, and
Yeah.
then you find out like when it just gets too much for them. I
Yeah.
believe in what do they call it, ghosting.
Ghost.
Yeah. I mean, we can all relate to that, and you know, people have told us time and time again, like, you know, I got your back, I'll be there, this, that, and third, they're gone the next day, you know. But,
Yeah.
but that's why now I think it's like as we get older as adults, you know, like I'm in my mid-30s, and you begin to just completely discern, like, who do you really keep in your circles?
Mhm.
You know, and the idea of like, yeah, keep your enemies close, but at the same time, it's like,
I hear
it's
that.
very rare, like, it's very rare that you can actually be vulnerable with people who you're close to,
Mm.
you know. And I was going through that last year, and I began to realize that I was actually getting a lot of comfort from people who I hardly talk to, people who are like, you know, barely know you, but you know, it happens because they don't really know much about you, and they're just trying to be genuinely kind, which is a rare commodity these days. You don't see a lot of kindness in this world. You don't see a lot of, everyone's so like, I mean, we're living in a hostile time, and I mean, like, it's a very polarizing time.
Very polarizing. It's
I
either
mean,
like it's either like Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton type
Right.
polarizing, left or right.
Left or right, left. I mean, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, and it's sad because you see like these people are being empowered by such
Yeah.
individuals who do have power, but they misuse it. And then, I mean, it's funny, you know, people talk about In My Feelings challenge. I'm still trying to understand what that is, but I
In My
see,
Feelings challenge.
yeah, it's like
Where they getting out of the car and
something like that.
Kiki.
Yeah, but who the hell's Kiki? I'm just trying to find if Annie's okay. But nah, man, like with on some.
Yeah, you're talking about, yeah, man, everybody's life. Like, there's there was the movement Black Lives Matter, right? And I think this was a very important movement as well. And I even did like a little speech about this for my Toastmasters group. It was like, Black lives do matter, yes, and I think that Black people have suffered a lot of injustice, but I think that they are trying to like put some focus on that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, there's like shit going down in Chicago, and Joe Rogan talks a lot about
Oh
this.
yeah, absolutely.
About and the guest that he has with I think he was talking with Tony Rock, Chris Rock's brother.
Yes.
And they were talking about Southside Chicago and the amount of people
Chirac.
that are
Chirac, right? They had a movie about that.
Chirac. Is
Yeah,
that what
Spike
it is?
Lee? Well, that's the nickname that they have for Southside Chicago, where it's like,
Chirac.
it's basically like it's a war zone.
A
Like,
war zone.
so
It's
many
crazy.
young Black men and women are dying.
Yes.
You know, and it's because it's a heavy gang violence.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a whole movie by Spike Lee called Chirac.
Is it out?
It's been out. It's like, I think it's like you can watch it on, I don't know if it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime, but
Okay.
definitely, like, if you could definitely Redbox it for sure.
Yeah. But the point that I was trying to make is
I didn't even realize.
nah, it's okay. Black lives do matter, but like, again, it comes back to polarizing. I think if you are saying that, hey, all right, stop with the Black Lives Matter thing, then people might think that maybe you're like a white supremacist or something like that, just being like polarizing as well. But like,
Right.
even if like, I joke around with my friends sometimes, and it could be racist, just joking around. But I don't feel like I'm racist at all. Like, I just don't. I think that every person's life matters, and even if like you're a Muslim or something of that nature, it's just like, good fuck, man. Could we all just be nice to each other? And that's why I like Joe Rogan's podcast so much, man, because he talks about like being kind to one another.
Yeah, just
in these difficult times where everybody is just like,
show kindness.
let me fucking call the cops on this little girl who's selling lemonade out
or whatever reason.
for whatever reason.
I mean, you have that one guy who like was fouled heavily at the gym, and he calls the police. And
Yeah.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Come on, dude, box
Yeah.
out or something. Take it.
Yeah,
It's
and
a full contact sport. Come on, man.
exactly. But in the case of that, the lady calling the cops on the little girl, she had a lot of backlash.
She did, which is amazing.
It is amazing, but at the same time, Joe made a good point to say, it's like, hey, look, you shouldn't be calling fucking cops on a little girl trying to sell lemonade. Come on.
I know. I mean, how is the kid gonna even have like? My thing is like, she was complaining that she wanted to see if the child had proof
like a
of
permit?
a license of a permit to sell, and I'm like, how is this 4 or 5-year-old kid? I mean, I don't know how old she was, but any kid for that
Could
matter.
get a permit to sell
Like,
lemonade.
yeah, like
Come
she's
on
like, she's
now.
really gonna do that? Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you flip the script on it, if some other affluent kids doesn't have to necessarily of any race. I mean, if we're just out here in Alhambra, you know, Rosemead, Alhambra area, how easy is it for these kids who live out in the suburbs and just set up shop, put out a fold-out table, and say, hey, lemonade for 5 cents. Everyone's like, cool, I'm gonna have a lemonade. But see, that's the problem. It's like they're just creating more problems for themselves. And
Who's creating more problems?
no, the people who call the police on these children, like, you're just adding more problems, or you just don't I mean, how uneventful or how pathetic is your life that, let's just step back and look in. If we're looking at a box in a situation and we see a woman who's clearly in her middle age, and she's calling the police on this child who's just trying to make maybe a little bit of money, maybe to, for whatever reason it may be, that's none of our business. But she's raising money because she needs funds. Why would you not deny her that?
Yeah.
Because she's like,
That's strange.
she's a child. Like, even an adult doesn't matter.
So was the issue that she would, like, do you think it was a race issue because the little girl was black, that's why she got called the cops?
For me personally,
Like, what was the little girl doing? Was she saying, lemonade, lemonade? Or was she, like, in front of this person's house screaming and
even if
shouting?
she was like that, I mean, how else are you going to grab people's attention? I mean, to me, it doesn't matter, like, what she was doing. The fact of the matter is that, I mean, the little girl was minding her own business. She wasn't harassing anyone. She just wanted to sell lemonade. But yet, this woman had to take it upon herself to call the cops. Like, to me, it's like, I don't even understand the logic that goes behind pursuing a child. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like,
Yeah.
it just comes down ultimately, like, look, it's like, mind your own business.
Gotcha.
If you don't like it, walk away.
Gotcha.
Unless, like, okay, well, here's another, let's play devil's advocate. Well, if, let's say she was selling the lemonade stand in front of her house, is blocking her driveway, well, that's different. But that situation is irrelevant because she was, like, in her own privacy, her own home.
Yeah.
In front
it's
of her
very
own
strange.
house. So it doesn't, it really, I just don't understand the logic.
Yeah.
Like, to
and
me,
now
this
she
doesn't.
gets backlash because of social media.
Mhm.
Not the little girl. A lot of people are favoring with the little
Yeah.
girl, which is, I think, the right thing to do because you're
Yeah.
the little girl trying to sell lemonade. Like I used to sell Kool-Aid or
Yeah.
whatever. Like who didn't do that, you know?
Yeah,
If
we
you
all
have
do.
somebody calling the cops on you and like harassing you, it's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what are you doing? Leave me alone.
Yeah, and you're not even like, you're not, and here's the thing, it's like you're not even creating any kind of form of like civil disturbance.
Yeah.
You're just making a little money for yourself
Yeah.
because maybe you need to raise money for a fundraiser.
But it is interesting, and I think it is a good thing that this lady got backlash, but I don't think it's a good thing about how much backlash that she
Oh,
got.
absolutely.
Because she was getting like death threats and stuff like that. She went on TV and said that she was getting death threats. All right, so I don't think that people should be giving her death threats. I think that she should know that what she did was very like stupid, like just a stupid and mean thing to do.
Yeah.
And some backlash to like give her some feedback. That's like actual like some good feedback. But like I feel we're in a moment in this life of extremes. It's like you're either like that's why you hear about the far left or the far right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, neo-Nazis are like radical left or like
And then you
the
got
radical right.
You got the
So
Tifa movement.
it is like you're either like all in
Or all out.
or all out. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But and I think that the reason why I like doing podcasts is because it's an opportunity to talk with people
Absolutely.
and get a more nuanced understanding of situations like this. To have it talked out with people who are thoughtful, mindful, and bring a own their own ideas into the situation as well.
It's a perspective.
Yeah,
Because
their own perspective.
Everyone has different perspectives. Everyone has different views. I've always looked at life where, to me, it's like, you know, we're living in this little rock. Call it an apartment complex. Call it whatever you want.
Organic spaceship.
Organic spaceship. It's a living
I like that
space. It's a living space, but the whole idea of what I'm trying to get at is we all have different views. We all have different rooms. And everyone has different views and different perspectives.
Huh.
There are times where we can only see what we can see from our own perspective and our own view and understand it for how we see it, how we can do it. And instead of like trying to take another human being who has another perspective and force them and jam them to look into this kind of view or perspective that we have from this spaceship apartment, you want to call it, called Earth, you know, this spatial, the space that we occupy and live in. But instead, invite the other person. It's like, hey, dude, check out my view. This is what I look at. And you go over there, it's like, let me see what you see.
Yeah.
It's the approach, because it's a matter of like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And there's different ways to go about it. But we're living in times where people are just angry and desperate, and they only have one emotion. And sometimes that tendency is anger. But instead of anger, just show love. Just show,
Yeah.
like, you know, we were talking about Joe Rogan, just showing kindness, just being a decent human being. Like,
Yeah, that's very important.
just be a decent human being. Like, act like you were raised right.
Mm-hmm.
Act like, you know, you got some sense. Like, you went through school. You learned some kind of form of etiquette.
Yeah.
But, you know, we live in a generation where it's like, no, they want to be all rickety raw and, like, ratchet. And, like, ain't nothing wrong with it. I mean, has to be a balance between ratchet and righteousness. But at the same time, when you're living your life 24/7, not trying to learn, not trying to evolve, not trying to grow, that's the very essence of life in itself. Because, you know, you come across cats who are just like, people who are just like, oh yeah, I've already learned what I need to know. That's how I've always done things. And like,
Right.
but there's innovation in life. You're constantly evolving. And you have to accept the fact that you don't know everything. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and to the point where it's like we can even go even deeper to the philosophical beliefs of Socrates and Plato, like the idea of like, you know, I don't know anything. The idea of like, you know, an unexamined life is not worth living.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes people don't do that, and we have to.
A lot of people, a lot of the times people don't do that.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think it comes back to self-awareness and like taking a look at yourself
Mm-hmm.
objectively and saying, hey, look, I know I've done a lot, and I've done a lot of things wrong,
Yeah.
and I know that there's behaviors that I have that are not best suited to live the life that I want to live. Is a good thing. It's self-awareness, like you were saying earlier. It's self-awareness, and I don't think a lot of people are self-aware.
They need to.
And they need to be. And I think that what I tried to do is what you were saying about taking, like, that's exactly what that was perfect. It's like, I don't try to force other people with my perspective, but I just put it out there so that they could take a look in and see what's going on in my mind.
Just sharing, you know, like,
Sure.
I mean, it's just like having a debate. You know, there are times where you're going to disagree on certain issues, certain belief systems, even if you have any. But at the same time, it's not to the point where you're literally you're shoving that dogma down somebody's throat. You have to actually give that room for them the ability to like, okay, you're sharing this idea with me, you're sharing this thought process with me. You have to give them that leg room, that wiggle room, so that they can process it, so they can analyze it, regurgitate it, and think like, okay, well, maybe I agree with it, maybe I don't. But
Yeah.
it's the idea of like there's too much hate in a debate, and we even clearly we saw that in the previous elections. I mean, I kind of laugh, you know, and I said, we're looking at Hillary versus Trump during the elections, and I was like, this is no different than a wrestling promo. It's no different like Donald Trump. And it's like Donald Trump took on the position of a wrestler, and Hillary Clinton just went back. It was just this back and forth of just blatant scrutiny amongst each other. And we haven't seen that much blatant scrutiny amongst each other's fellow candidates for a long time. To the point where it's like, to me, I felt like more like, am I watching the electoral debate, or am I watching Monday Night Raw? You know, like it became that, and unfortunately, well, here's the end results.
Yeah.
And, I mean, now we got to live with it. We got to stick with it.
Right.
And there's nothing we can really do about it except just be involved.
Yeah. What do you think is, like, if you had to put a few items on the pain that people feel, like, where is it coming from? You know? Because you were saying, and I agree with you, that we are living in some difficult times. Well, we are living in the easiest time, I feel, because of just like technology. We, got the air conditioning on, we got information like at our fingertips.
Wi-Fi.
We got Wi-Fi, we got water, we got
Netflix
everything
and
Netflix, and we just got everything.
Yeah.
When it comes to people in the first world, for sure, like, we just got everything. But what do you think is the reason why so many people are suffering?
I mean, I'm not the person to answer such a thing, but just based on my observation and my humble opinion, man, it varies from different things. I mean, a lot of people are hurting for various reasons. Whether it be they're actually physically hurting because they have to overcome a disease. People are hurting because they have cancer, AIDS. It could also be, people are struggling. And how many times have we heard of people struggling with depression?
Yeah.
The whole idea of depression and how, that pretty much dictates their life, and it dictates their entire day-to-day life and how they go about things. It's a mental condition. Are they mentally healthy?
Maybe even the food, like people's diets.
I believe it's nutrition as well. I believe the stuff, the things that they're putting in our food is affecting them. The mood, hormones. It's all. I mean, if you really think about it, it's just like all together it affects the entire constitution of the body. And that's why, because you and I we're very health conscious. We like to go to the gym, we like to work out, we're very conscious about what we put in our bodies and our system. And that's only been recent, But I also believe too, the more obvious reasons why people are just angry and mad are just, it's sad altogether. Because, finances, people are struggling financially as well too. Many will not be quick to admit it, but you can see it.
Yeah.
Because the lack of money is the lack of power. And without money, I'm not saying that money is everything, but it helps a whole lot.
Yeah.
Make your life a little bit easier. I mean, we're blessed and we're fortunate, we have a roof on our heads, we have food on the table, clothes on our backs, and people that love us. But you have people around the streets.
Yeah.
And they're on the streets for various reasons. They're either struggling with addiction, whatever it may be, substance abuse, or something as simple as a relationship, a breakup, a divorce, something.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. Because back
There's so many things.
There's a lot of factors that play a role. But here's an interesting fact though. As I was at Alameda, Leo and Marymount, I would volunteer at the mission over here in downtown Springfield. And I've always taken an approach with our organization. The organization that I worked with and was a part of, it was a service org called Logis. And we would always go out. Well, I would choose to go out and work with the homeless. We would either go in Hollywood or Blessed Sacrament, and they had a homeless center, not a homeless shelter. It was different because they didn't actually house anyone. It was just more like, okay, here is a space where you can bathe, you can shower, you can get all the bare necessities you need, like the bare essentials that include like hygienic products, simple things as underwear and socks, little things we take for granted. And then they would give them food, they would feed them, and they would also they would also give them food to go. But the one thing that we also was responsible for, we were able to set up computers so that what these homeless individuals can do is they can familiarize themselves with working with a computer, writing up, typing up their resumes, and actually using the center as an address. Because one issue we don't really talk about homelessness. A lot of people will say, oh, they're homeless because they're addicted to drugs. So what? They are addicted to drugs. It's an addiction. It's a disease. When you're addicted to a substance and there's nothing you can do about it, you can barely even afford to go to rehab, which most of the celebrities can't and do, and they either do well or they don't, they come back and they relapse. The one thing you have to take into consideration is when you're looking at, let's say you're gonna apply for employment. What's the first thing you write down? Your name, right? Write your name. Your name. And then Marty, what's your last name?
Yang.
Marty Yang. What's the second thing you're gonna put on there?
Age, address.
But now if you're homeless, how are you gonna put an address? So that's why it kind of doesn't help them. Because you can put a P.O. box. You could put, if they even have one, that's why that center was able to provide that. You can use the center's address to show that this is your.
That's beautiful.
You're able to receive mail and everything. But
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and a lot of people are suffering, and a lot of it has to do with just you'll be surprised what the littlest, maybe the smallest problem that became, it just outgrew itself.
Yeah. Kind of like a molehill turned into a mountain.
Yeah, and sometimes and people get and we're not saying that all cases of homelessness or cases of sadness and depression that happens with people and disease. It's also lifestyle. It goes back to are you taking care of yourself? Not just on a physical level. You can work out like a monster and be a beast and go hard at the gym for 2 to 3 hours, CrossFit, whatever. But then if you're not resting, you're not sitting back and relaxing and spending time with the family or friends that matters most to you, then all that working out makes no difference. You look at, fine example, Bruce Lee. Peak, optimum peak. He's the guy who reached the best kind of form of physicality you can ever achieve. But when did he die? He died from a heart attack. Because he couldn't slow it down. He couldn't relax. I think it's we just have to have the, don't get me wrong, despite all the crap that's going on in this world right now in our country, we're still living in one of the greatest countries ever. It's not, how it was before, however people want to say, make America great again. How? That's a very ambiguous statement.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about pre-Civil War, Civil Rights movement during Jim Crow or something. But that's clearly their statement. But we're still blessed. We're still
very much so.
Even, they were even saying that even the people who are homeless are still living in better conditions than our brothers and sisters that live in third world countries.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why some of these people cross over to seek
I get
political
you.
asylum and all that stuff.
I get you.
But I think, I mean, I'm not the, I don't know if I'm the person to be asked that question, but since you asked, I mean.
No, I think a lot of what you said is very, very true. There's a lot of people suffering from depression. You know, people are homeless, and then I just think people also too are just far too sensitive, and they just want to get looking for a reason to get
That
pissed
too.
off at anything. So
What do they call them? The snowflakes?
is that what they're called?
I
Snowflakes?
guess. The ones who just get easily offended by everything.
You know who Tim Kennedy is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
no.
Tim Kennedy is like this badass, like special operations like person in the military.
Right.
And he said this, I'm pretty sure, that said that in soft times, what do you say, hard times, something along the
Like
lines.
tough people or something?
Something along those lines, yeah. Like hard times make hard men. Hard men are tough, so they make easy times. Easy times make soft men, and then they're like, yeah, soft men make hard times.
I mean,
something along those lines.
I think I hate to use a derogatory term, but I mean many have thrown it around in a lot of like these podcasts. They talk about like the ideas of a pussified generation.
Pussified. Yeah.
As offensive and as misogynistic as that may sound, but I mean there is some kind of
Well, I can tell you
truth.
what, man.
There's a slight truth to it because a lot of people get offended by so many different things, little things.
Dude, our parents' generation are much more tougher than we are.
Yes, they are.
And then their parents much more tougher than they were. So, yes, I think that right now, and we'll wrap it up very soon. We're at 55 minutes, but
Oh, wow, sorry.
yeah, but I just think that people are suffering, yes, but I think that there's things that we need to do in order to move out of that suffering. And I don't know, some of the things, that's why I post these videos of like me going to the gym or whatever, because when you're able to feel good physically, that is like, your health is like your primary thing that you need to take care of. It's like when you feel good, it just like makes everything easy, a little bit more easier, in my opinion.
It does.
So I think that people, like, you know, just wrapping it up here, what would you say that people like need to do in order to start improving their lives? One of the things that I wanted to bring you on for is, I think because of your music, that helps your life and your creative expression to flourish and feel better about yourself. This podcast and these videos that I do for me is a way to express myself and helps me to feel more lively and vibrant. And it helps my life. So, I don't know, what would you say that like people need to do? Just
Find your outlet. Just find your happiness. You need to find your outlet. You need to find what makes you happy. Do things that make you genuinely happy.
Truth.
For me, like,
Facts.
for me, it's like, stop focusing on everything else that's going around. Other people. Don't focus on other people. Don't compare yourself to other people on Instagram. What is your God-given gift and talent? If you haven't found it, discover it. Start playing around with certain things, whether it be music, making vlogs, writing, poetry, art. There's so many things in this world. There's no excuse.
Right.
You could say it's work, but think about it. Work only takes up 8 hours of your life if you're working a 9 to 5. Technically, what are you doing with the rest of the day, the rest of the week?
Yeah.
Okay? And that's why, like, it could be a good segue for the mixtape, which is Summer Lust 2. And it's a dancehall reggae mixtape, and it's basically a collection.
I like it, man. I listen to it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. And it's a collection of different forms of reggae, mashups from classic R&B, hip-hop, and R&B and stuff. That's actually also out today. And so there was a time where I was just like, look, I mean, I'm practicing, I'm DJing, I'm doing this, that, and the third. And Chuck was like, hey man, you should record it. That's why I did Summer Lust 1.
Oh, okay.
Summer Lust 1 was just like, all right. Look, here's the funny part about that process. He just said, hey man, I just want you to come in, let's just session, I want you to throw some music, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, man, but just keep in mind, like, just do a reggae. Like, let's do a dancehall tape. Because Chuck's like, you know, he's done a lot of hip-hop tapes and this, that, and that. I'm like, yeah, sure. So while I'm like, you know, I'm like there setting up, and he's like, by the way, I was surprised. I'm like, what? what's up? And I'm like, what are we doing? I thought we're sessioning. He's like, nah, I'm recording you as we speak. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, so he was like, because at that time I was just like, I really want to record, my own mixes, but, sometimes, it takes a village to help you out. And to me, it's like, I can do what I do, like mix records, scratch, session, juggle, this, that, and the third. But, Chuck, God bless him, because he's the one that helped me record it. He's the one that helped, basically, I mixed it, he mastered it.
Gotcha.
And then clean up just here and there, and just like with any artist, when you're a recording artist, it takes a village to put you out there. Like the promoting, the music, the producing, the songwriting, it just basically, he set up a situation where I was like, okay, cool, like made a mix, and he was like, I love it, just put it out. I'm like, what do you mean putting it out? He's like, something, what do you want to call it? Summer Lust 1 from last year, and Summer Lust 2, I came in with a different approach, and I was like, dude, it's summer. We gotta do something new. I want to do something different, because last year's tape was all about like classic dancehall tracks, like stuff we would hear in the metal bar. We would hear that. Remember the two rooms? They had the hip hop room and the reggae room, and it was just like, just remembering like those moments where it was inspiring. And then Summer Lust 2 came around, where to the point where Chuck and me, Honorable Productions, put out Summer Lust 1, I was already, like, by the time, like, within a week or 2 weeks, I was already putting Summer Lust 2 together. Nice. And then I actually was doing a lot of extra digging, and that actual mixtape is a little bit more like, I wanted to focus on a time period in the 90s where reggae, dancehall, and hip-hop were synonymous with each other. It was to the point where, like when we were like late 90s, early mid 2000s, we had R&B hip hop. We had that, that intermarriage. Well, in like the early mid 90s, there was an intermarriage between dancehall artists and hip hop artists, and they were synonymous with the two. So if you listen deeply, there's a lot of old school, like, hip hop tracks that were highly influenced. They're hip hop, but they're still reggae, they're still dancehall. And my whole thing was like just creating, a space where I wanted to put those two together and still kind of give it the Summer Lust kind of brand, the same, like, it's like, it's for the summer. Because, summer evokes this kind of emotion that, it's just this lust for life. It's looking forward for summer, and that idea of like having a lust for life, like looking forward to the summers, going to the beaches, going to the barbecues, going out at night at the day clubs where there's going to be like good music, good vibes, people. And I was like just trying to capture that spirit.